And one of my favorite quotes in sacred scripture, and you're an expert, I'm just kind of coming and going through it, is I think it's from Ecclesiastes, and the quote is, "There's nothing new under the sun." There's nothing new under the sun. And I love the fact that the wisest man in the world at the time is bored by the fact that there is nothing new going on here. It's all been said. It's all been done. We've experienced it before. And for me in my faith walk, Cathy, that actually gives me a lot of hope during days like today that are hard, that seem like we've never been through this before. It's never been this hard. It's never been this much of a slodge. And then you're reminded 2,700 years ago, someone was looking around seeing the exact same conditions. And we can look at that with great fear and pessimism, or as you do, with great hope and optimism.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think has happened in this generation is we've gotten really soft and we forget we are so resilient. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Our grandparents, our great grandparents, they've survived wars, famines, hardship, polio. They have survived it. My grandparents, my great grandparents, I know the stories personally of how they had to flee the Holocaust, flee the pogroms in Russia, leave all their family, murders of people they loved, devastation. My grandparents, my grandmother was born to a wealthy family. They had money. They had servants. They had all of these beautiful things living in Europe. The Holocaust took all that they had financially and most of the people that they loved.
Wow.
And then they had to come to New York City with nothing but no language, no money, zero. And then the humility of having had so much, and then it's like ripped out of your hands for no reason other than people don't like you and they killed everybody. So you're mourning, you're grieving. What did they do? They come to the Lower East Side of Manhattan and they built a business. You know what business they built? They created the cardboard that went inside men's dress shirts. And they started selling it and making it and walking into Macy's and Bloomingdale's and saying, you could use this. And they started standing in front of a machine with big sheets of cardboard, and they built a business that fed 4 families and worked hard labor in front of a machine and sales and a new language. And they did it. That's one tiny, tiny little story. But if you knew what the beginning of that story was and what it's like to lose your mother and come to a new country when you're 15 years old and you were only able to get on the ship because somebody raped you and that was your ticket to get on that ship, and now you're coming alone with no sister, no brother, no parents, and 1 tea kettle because that's all you could take. And then you come and you build a business and you get married and you have children and you meet your husband. My grandparents met in Harlem dancing at a club called Roseland where Ella Fitzgerald used to sing in the middle of the Depression. And they built a business and they built a life and they built a family and they had holidays and they went to the Catskills and they had a vacation home and they lived a life. And that's one teeny tiny story. And all of my grandparents, all 4 of them have a story like that. But all of us who are listening, your grandparents, your great grandparents, go find the story of how this child died of this polio. Find the story of how, and what did they do? They kept going. You have 2 choices. You're either going to succumb to fear, which does nothing for you. In fact, the most contagious thing right now is not the virus, because that we know is contagious, but the fear will be much more contagious. And we know that the nervous system is plugged into the immune system. So the more worked up, the more anxious, the more your body starts to fill with that cortisol, the less sleep you get because your mind is racing. It will poison your body. We have to choose. God doesn't want us to go into a state of fear. He wants us to say, what is here for me right now? How am I going to learn to have compassion? Let myself feel, let myself cry, give myself a hug, take a break, and then pivot and say, what is here right now? The birds are singing. The canals in Venice are clean for the first time in hundreds of years. You can hear that the pollution in Wuhan, China has decreased to such a degree that they can hear the birds in the air. Los Angeles has so much smog. I can look out my window right now. I can see clear across to the mountains. So there's something happening and we don't have to get it. How could our little minds understand what's really going on in the universe. We don't. But what we can do is say, everyone has been resilient.